back out to them on that list of, from the insurance company. The other thing, they did provide some sample indemnification and hold harmless language. Just a paragraph I thought would be good to put on our rental agreement also. So maybe once we find out building capacity, we can just put it all in and then, or add it at that time. But nothing else other than this, the fire extinguishers, the smoke detectors. They do recommend that contracted services or contracts be reviewed by legal counsel periodically, and they specifically mentioned the Lakeview Fire District, that joint operations agreement, that should be reviewed by the attorney periodically. If we had a cemetery ordinance, which I don't know that we yeah, I don't know. That's future discussion. But anyways, yeah, just things to consider. But for the immediate, I thought the building stuff. So we're gonna have Todd look at getting those inspected. I'll just go ahead and have Matt hang those. He said free of charge, so donation. And then we will update our agreement once we get some more information. Anything else on that? Otherwise, moving on. Annual audit report. So everybody should have got a hard copy. Todd had that in your hard copy packet. So our audit, I just learned this morning was the auditor came through, got it filed with the state of Michigan by the December 31st deadline. So all of that is set. The December was a little crazy. The auditor was behind, and I want to thank everyone for Todd and Joyce for having their all the requested information ready for her to just sit down and start working through it. And Dutch also, deputy treasurer, was on site for her and I were in there for a Friday, just kind of be in there for questions. So I'd like to thank Dutch also. We'll go through some high level stuff. I don't want to take a ton of time. You guys can read through it, but just some of the basics. If you go to page 1, this is the independent auditors report from Lake Michigan CPA Services, and I'll be honest with you, most of this language is standard auditor language that we have to put in there, but really what we want to focus on is in the top section for opinions. Second paragraph, first sentence, I'll paraphrase for time. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of Cato Township as of June 30th, 2023. So we did not have any material misstatements, so we got a clean report or unmodified opinion. If there was something, they would have modified the report. So we did get a clean audit report. Skip over to page 3. This is management's discussion and analysis, which is just a high level, picks up some highlights of the financials for those who don't want to read from front to back. But just to kind of fill you guys in, there are 2 sets of financial statements that get reported in these audits. There's what's called the government-wide statements. And then there's the fund statements. And the government-wide, I would say those are more the accountant statements. They're full accrual basis. They record depreciation and capital assets on the balance sheet. Whereas in fund financial statements, our roof, for example, was just an expense. That's more of a inflow, outflow type statement, which is a lot of people find more useful. So under that financial assets, financial highlights, it's saying the township, this is 6 months stale. Hopefully we can get it done a little sooner next year, maybe in the summer. But the assets of Cato Township exceeded its liabilities at the close of June 30th fiscal year, June 30th, 2023 fiscal year by approximately $669,000. And the net position or bottom line increased by $99,000, approximately, mainly due to us having that ARPA money to use to spend that revenue versus using some of our normal operating revenue. So it kind of led to an increase in position. Let's see, page 5, government-wide analysis. So at the bottom, you'll see that table, total net position at the bottom left column is that 669. You'll see we had our total assets of $817,000 and our current liabilities of $148,000 at that time at June 30th, the bulk of which is our unspent ARPA at that time, which includes the $50,000 for the village trail as it breaks down our net position after we take our assets less our liabilities. Invested in capital assets, the $60,467. That's basically our capital assets are mainly our building less depreciation. So it goes on there at cost. It's not fair market value, but the cost gets depreciated. And then the restricted line is that's fire in Honeymoon Heights, and then the unrestricted is the difference. And then just a quick note on the second column where it says restated. That goes back to the discussion we had back in when we were doing our budget, where we were trying to determine that board bonus, what period that applied to. And what we determined, it's always kind of been off a year because it gets paid in July after the fiscal year end. So what we had the auditor propose to her, and she agreed, is we did a catch-up adjustment to kind of get that 11,000 or whatever it is shifted kind of back a year, so that what was paid out in July to the previous board got accrued into June 30th of 2023. So it's kind of a one-time fix. So now we're kind of brought whole on that. I just wanted to make note. And then a few other things. Page 13 is the fund financial statements. Basically your profit and loss. We have a total of 4 funds, but we have 3 governmental funds. We have the general fund, the fire fund, and then the third column is Honeymoon Heights. And you can read through that where you can see all of our revenues and our expenditures, what our basically net change in fund balance or net profit or loss was. And then the fund balance, which is different from those government-wide statements, mainly because of the capital assets and depreciation. But if you flip back a couple pages to page 11, that's our balance sheet. Under fund balances toward the bottom, you'll see committed for trail improvements, the 50,000. So we've got that lined up, listed out specifically. And then our unearned revenue, a few lines up, that 110,000, that is was our unspent ARPA at June 30th, 50,000 of which was committed for the trail. So we've since spent some ARPA, and we're looking to, hopefully, I think we got to report that end of April, and we need to get it allocated this year and spent by 2026. So cut just a couple other pages and we can wrap this up. Page 15 is our agency fund, which is the tax collection fund, which is an in and out. We had a little tiny balance of $225, must be paid after the end of the year. Usually it's zero, but on the next page 16, you can see we brought in $3.2 million, or the property tax collections for other governments. We paid out $3.2 million, and we had a little residual balance of $225. So I'm assuming that got paid out after year end.
Those are mostly checks from people overpaying their winter tax.
Okay.
Because of the misunderstanding there. We
Oh,
resent taxes.
Yep.
And so most of them, I was able to contact them, and they actually just reduced their summer bill. I used that check to pay part of their, so they
Gotcha.
balanced it out.
I figured it was,
They've all
you
been
know what
taken-
it was.
yeah, they've all been taken care of, so.
And then last page 26 on here is the budgetary comparison schedule, which is just taking our general fund actual numbers and comparing it to our budget. And we had an overall positive variance in most of our categories. Ideally, we would have, it would be a 0 variance. This was our budgeted revenues and this was our budgeted expenses, and it came out exactly, but that only happens in a perfect world. And we'd rather be a positive than a negative variance, because that would be reported to the state. So those are just some highlights when you're looking at these things. I just thought it'd be helpful for the board to see. So, I guess, do we vote on? I guess we'll just vote to accept it. Oh, okay. We'll just do it. If you guys had a chance to look at it, I'm gonna make a motion that we accept the auditor's report for June 2023. Is there support? Support. Motion's been made and supported. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. And we did also have a letter of recommendation, which you should have had that as well. But we had 3 comments that they noted for us. It was this letter that would have been in there. If you go to page 2, at the bottom, there's a section for comments and recommendations. She is recommending, and we had some discussions on this, that we should be, Joyce has all her stuff recorded in Excel and in BSNA for the tax account. But technically, the Michigan Accounting Manual says says that on the clerk's records and QuickBooks, that activity should also be recorded, which it's not it's batch deposits and, however many checks that you write out to the school and this and that, but, she'd like to see that, recorded in QuickBooks, and she has set that up for us to use, and after we get through the election and, Todd gets a breather, we can start working on that and get that filled out, and then we can report to the board during, times of tax activity, as well.
I did talk to Miranda, and she said any day she can just,
Oh, great, Miranda, yeah, okay,
she can just take my computer and just plug them right in,
perfect,
so it shouldn't be an issue.
perfect. So we can hopefully mark that off soon. And then the second item, which I would like to address this when we do our budget, is, she'd like to see us adopt a policy on, fund balance. And, figuring out what is how much do we wanna keep as a operating reserve for our operating budget. Usually it's a percentage of revenue, and then that tells us kind of what we have to spend on taxpayer projects, and maybe we can also, if we wanna start saving for that project, like, oh, we think the cemetery well's gonna, so bad in 5 years, let's start allocating a little bit. It doesn't mean it's set in stone, but that way us as board members can look at that and kind of plan. So I'd like to address that when we do our budget, do another budget workshop this year. And then the last thing is, regarding our, policy on, the rental, the clerk and the treasurer rental for home office. We need to make sure that we are doing 1099s for that, and it sounds like talking to Joyce, there used to be, and for some reason stopped, and, we need to, make sure she does that this year, so, everybody's good on that? Okay, we're near the end here, so. Guess anything else, on the board? And we'll move into our final public comment, section, so public comment on anything. Matt?
I don't work for free.
You don't?
One comment, we can put it on the cement wall, it just, wherever you guys would like this. Alarms, I figured, if you have one out here in the major room, the kitchen, in the hallway, I would think the hallway by the office, because let's say something happens in the kitchen and you're in there working, Joyce, and the door's half open and you don't see it, at least you're gonna hear it, or it will detect it, hopefully, so I guess that's my 3 comments. Where I would like, where I'd like to do it. And then the fire extinguishers, we can hang them, or we can just put them underneath, like the kitchen sink, or in a corner, and one probably in your guys' office, somewhere where you guys, we just set them in there now, but they do have hangers as well.
But don't you think we need the carbon monoxide smoke detector in the office, so that if somebody opens it up and there was, carbon monoxide, they would hear like, oh, there's something, I guess.
Yeah, cause enter a vent, didn't you say there was a hold vent, or a vent goes through there?
There's a vent through the ceiling, yes.
Yeah,
So that should probably have a carbon
yeah,
dioxide.
that's why I was thinking
detector.
one in there and then one in the hallway near the kitchen, I guess, right, it's kind of my thought, so, yeah. Any other public comments? Dan?
I'll just mention Dan Mitchell with Mercantile Bank. I'm a vice president, commercial lender, commercial banker with the bank. Been with the bank 17 years. Actually worked with Bill Beneer, who came from Bank of Lakeview, with Jerome Schwinn at various times in my career, and certainly with Barb Kane now. And so know a lot about Lakeview, and certainly work with Darren, and certainly be a part, and glad to be a part of the community. We appreciate the business that we've had and the relationship we've had with Cato Township for a long time now. As Bank of Lakeview, First Bank, I was with First Bank and now Mercantile Bank. It's a privilege for us, and I think I mentioned that to Brandy. It's a privilege to have the largest community bank in the state of Michigan be a member of the Lakeview community. Not too many communities can say that, and certainly we're glad to be here and glad to maintain an office here. When I had an office in the Lakeview office as well as our Ionia office, when we donated those 2 buildings just prior to the pandemic. We donated our office, which was Ionia County National Bank, the headquarters there. At one point, 150 people were in that building. A large building that wasn't needed anymore with electronic banking. We had 2 other offices in Ionia, so we donated that to the Ionia Library. Here in Lakeview, the same situation. A large bank that once was Bank of Alma, a large bank. It was the bank headquarters. A large building like that is no longer necessary in today's banking environment, and so the decision was made that it could probably be used in a better, rather than cutting it up, it would be better used for the VFW, and so that building was donated to the VFW. And so it's been our privilege to be a part of the communities as we have been able to give back in those manners, as well as just to be a part of the community. So it made sense for us to move out onto the highway here, just from an exposure standpoint, as well as just traffic and being able to serve the community. But we're still glad to be here and certainly appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve Cato Township. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and close that, and is there a motion to adjourn? Is there support? Motion is made and supported, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried, so board meeting adjourned.